welcome back to another Linux Gamecast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, Super Time Force Ultra finally arrives on Linux. But was it really worth the wait? And Feral just teased Hitman. Then again, it could have been Sleeping Dogs.
Want a desktop GPU in your laptop? Well, how much do you value your sperm count? And it's the great key caper of 2016, aka people learn to not post things on the internet they don't want stolen.
Competitive CSGO got a rule change, and an ESPN blogger gets really upset about it. New NVIDIA beta driver is out. It introduces Pascal overclocking and fixes a bug with a 13-year-old Linux game.
I'm Vince Stone here at LGC Actual, switching the bits along with everyone else on the Linux, because that's how we do it. But before we get started, we like to see what's going on in everyone's life organs, and I'm going to start with our tame Canadian podcaster, Master Sweat.
I went and finished Mr. Robot. I finally got around to doing that. Season 1, at least. I'm interested to see where Season 2 goes, considering... I don't want to spoil it because I'm waiting for Ben to finish that up. Like I am with Hannibal. When's that going to happen, Ben? Huh? Huh?
And Pedro Mateus from Space Portugal, my friend. How's it going? What's up?
Hello. Yeah, no, around here, actually this week was pretty busy at work, so I didn't get a chance to play much of anything except the game we're reviewing. And even that got its time cut a little bit short. I did do a bit of a live stream of No Man's Sky earlier today, so you can go on Twitch and watch the VOD if you really want to.
Didn't do much this week myself. My technical director at the station was like jamming on something when he was eating his lunch, and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" He's like, "It's Feathers and Flesh. It's some Swiss, what do you call it, pop metal?" That's what I call it, pop metal. So I picked up the album, listened to it, right home. Not horrible, and there's a Russian metal band that I completely have forgotten the name of. That sounds
something
really good.
Weird?
Yeah, something Whiskers. It sounds horrifying. But one thing that isn't horrifying, Jordan.
Well, actually, it's an interesting bit of trivia here. It's illegal to drag a dead horse down Yonge Street on a Tuesday in Ontario. It's the Steamworks Update.
There's probably a reason we do this on Saturday, but like I mentioned during the little rundown thing that we do at the start, the ESPN blogger got really upset because Valve changed the rules when it comes to CSGO competitive tournament.
I think that is almost more of a story than the story itself. Valve news on ESPN.
Yeah.
Well, wait, hold on. Is this ESPN 8 the Ocho? Because maybe that would work.
Oh.
I have no idea where they actually air because I don't watch ESPN, so yeah. But no, apparently they do, and one of their internet people got really upset because this rule change only benefits Valve because, and he goes in length explaining why.
Except it doesn't benefit Valve. It doesn't really benefit everyone. In short, apparently in like CS:GO tournaments, there's this role of a coach that coordinates between all the various players and like gives direction and whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're not allowed to have a coach anymore. So neither Ven nor I play Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but you do. So what does this actually mean for the game?
Because competitive CSGO is a 5 versus 5 thing. That's always what it was designed to be, and I kind of agree with Valve here, because a coach was literally a ghost keeping an eye on everyone on the team and could pay attention to other details that the players weren't focused on at that particular time. It was literally like having a 6th player just spectating and looking at those things that usually go unnoticed when you're in the thick of it.
Giggity.
I never really played CSGO at a competitive level, at least not at like the official tournament level. And the 25 competitive matches that I played, that I won out of a total of 28, they would have been considerably easier if I'd had someone else over my shoulder calling out stuff that was happening on my own screen that I wasn't looking at because I wasn't paying attention to it. So...
Oh, okay. What about this? What about if we just let coaches back in, but they're dicks? And they...
Yeah,
you have to do the opposite of what they
assholes,
say.
yes.
Yeah. See,
Yeah, but then again, you're kind of trained to that because even if they're telling you the exact opposite, you already know. Okay, no, so that's okay, right?
Well,
So-
coaches aren't the only thing that they've really lost this week, though, right?
Yes, they went and lost a couple keys from ZDNet because I'm Canadian and I have to pronounce it Zed. So there is a site called DLH.net, and part of what it does is it has a service for trading Steam games, and you can just post your keys and do whatever you want as per the forum rules and whatnot. And because these guys are using an older version of vBulletin, that wonderful, I think it's PHP based. It might be ASP, but it's probably. Is it ASP or
No,
PHP?
no, it's PHP based.
PHP based.
Lampstack.
Web forum software. Because they're running an older version and because PHP applications are nightmares to secure, someone breached it and they got access to a ton of passwords, user informations, and Steam keys. One interesting thing, apparently they're only using MD5 hashes for their password storage, which isn't good. That's like not how you secure a service.
Using MD5 hashes initially because the latter accounts that were also breached, they were using the SHA 256. Come on. But yeah, no, this is the exact same bulletin version that was also breached in the Ubuntu forums when those were hacked. So moral of the story is, don't use vBulletin, kids.
Linux Gamecast uses PHPBB, so...
I think the moral of this story is, because it was like Steam keys in the forums, how did that work? Well, this is one of the things where you could store your Steam keys for actual trade on this particular messaging board. Bad idea? Question mark.
Well, I mean, it's the classic thing of don't put anything valuable on the internet that you're not willing to have stolen, because unfortunately, this is the reality of the age we live in, where we're at the edge of the precipice of security. We're scrambling to like stay ahead of people, and of course, if you don't keep your forum up to date, then you're going to run into a whole whack of additional problems. But I'm pretty sure the G2A guys are creaming their jeans right now. They're very excited.
Oh yeah, they love this one. But yeah, so a little bit of non-news, as it were. Like every now and again, we get a little bit of non-news on the show, and this week it's Mad Max,
and everyone was excited. It's like, all right, it's Warner Brothers.
Yeah, that was the big thing. But the real story here is all of those repos you see there, you don't actually see any Linux on there, but if you look up those repo numbers on the the repo listing, as it were, you'll see that both the Mac and Linux depots have gone into quote-unquote public beta. Now, you still need a password to unlock said depot, and I didn't see any forum posts on the Steam forums about the password and how you get access to it.
Pedro, it's Swordfish.
Listen, I don't understand what Halle Berry's boobs have to do with any of this. Can we get back on topic?
That's the only thing I remember about that movie. But yeah, no, it's Mad Max. We knew that the port was still coming. Well, as far as anyone knew, really. Well, we knew that it was in development because periodically we get these rumblings from SteamDB. But what I really want is for this to be like a true blue legit engine port, because Daddy needs some Just Cause multiplayer, man. Daddy needs it. Hook it in his veins. God damn it.
I don't know, man. I was definitely looking at that, and not Just Cause, but it's like a Hitman, or is it? We got a bunch of stuff that we need to talk about in the news, but this is. I don't know. I'm terrified just because it's the WB. Yeah, and Strider on Google Plus, I kind of posted the snarky thing and saying it's totally virtual programming, but Strider actually looked at the way the depots are laid out, and he said, no, it doesn't look like the usual virtual programming port. Feral has been quiet except for the whole depth charge blip that they had on their little radar. It moved to the very soon. I guess that could be it, because the Great Salt and a depth charge is something you use in the sea. Did anybody stay on top of like Aspire? Because earlier this week Aspire was like, "Ooh, in 3 days we're gonna announce." That's
a Mac and iOS thing.
Okay, because after day 1, I was like, "Etu Aspu."
Yeah, no, that turned out to be just a Mac and
they're too busy
iOS
porting
thing.
PlayStation games over to Linux when they should be porting good games because we know they can. We know they can.
Yeah, said they do a really good job of it. Come on, Aspire. Pretty
But
cool.
I guess the good news is it's Mad Max, and I think that was a like a 60 quid title when it came out. You can pick that up for like $7 all day long now, so it's always on sale. Don't buy it until legitimately. Don't buy it until
No tucks, no bucks. That's the idiom.
It's kind of the thing. But Ultra Mega 9000 Super Time Force X2 Ultra, it's out. Came out in 2014. Super Time Force Ultra is an insane platformer filled with robots and dinosaurs and fun and time travel, sometimes all at the same time, which is absolutely true. This has got some quirky animation, humor, and
really weird system. Weird gameplay.
Explaining that would kind of be spoiling it, but there is not so much. Well, there's time travel within the scene. I was just the Humble Bundle when it came out. We'll talk more about that in the news. And lung capacity, man, I can keep going, so don't even try. But the mechanic of that was pretty neat. I was just like, oh, that's the only reason I bought it, because I just want a platformer, simple platformer. And all was going well. No, it was like, here's jump, and you do this, and it was like, then it adds this mechanic. But after about 45 minutes into it, I think it's a bit of all right. Jordan, it angered and confused you, though, right?
Yeah, no, it's basically Rose in Time meets Contra. We threw some chairs at that before. If you want to dig into the LGC classic archives before our, we sort of hit our stride.
Oh, what about the black and white spirally spinny game?
The bridge?
Yeah.
That didn't really use a similar mechanic. That was just a rewind function.
Oh, right. Okay.
But it's sort of like how Braid does it. But this one also, I think it's a Unity game, because I had to bust out the old pulse latency MSEC equals 60 on it, because I love that crack-a-lackin' that those pulse audio underruns cause.
Buffer underruns.
That it definitely has that. Somehow it even managed to do it.
I mean,
box,
hell, if this is your thing, you can pick it up with the Humble Bundle still. We'll get to that later in the news section. But speaking of stuff we'll get to later, we gotta get on this Canadian death trip. This is the Death Road to Canada Spleen update. They have a new beta branch that that has a new movement system.
A lot of new updates.
Apparently, if you have Explorer, you can re-roll new destinations as you get on. They have some fixes for Linux. They apparently the camera will now also track player 2. I did not get a chance to play couch multiplayer with this, which was a little disappointing, because I had a roommate and he's like, yeah, I'll play it, and then 2 hours later he's like, I'm busy playing Cities XL. Blah,
I actually did get a chance to play some local multiplayer. We'll talk more about that later. Pedro?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, they had a bit of a snafu with one of the updates.
Oh, snafu, yes.
Yeah, on the 16th, they released an update, the Spleen Update 2, and they introduced a bunch of dependencies because they started using the new version of SDL2. Kudos on them for using SDL2, but apparently they forgot to cull some of the extraneous dependencies, and it caused a shit ton of problems for just about everyone.
Yeah,
then they tried to fix it.
We'll get into more detail in the review segment, because I have this whole fucking spiel of how I eventually got this game fucking working. But needless to say, these guys need to learn how to A, link against Steam runtime, B, include whatever libraries they need to include in the game directory. It's just
but the Steam runtime includes SDL2, just saying.
But does it include TSLib or SNDIO or LibBSD or LibSexy or any of the myriad of others?
No, but it includes Fezzes.
Oh yes. So this is Fez. It's a game that came out with a Humble Bundle years and years and years ago, and supposedly this is the final update. This guy is apparently sick of working on this game. But
over 100 and something fixes, man.
There are, and this is This is one of these games that was originally done in Moto Game, and thanks to the lovely work of Mr. Flippity Jibbity Flippity Floppity Floop, it is now 100% an FNA game, which means there is a single solitary code base for everything, and that's the way it should be. God damn it! I am sick and tired of all these games with like 6 different disparate, unmaintainable versions of the same fucking code, with like the definitions changed to work with a specific platform. No,
that's how you know it's a flip it
why I bother checking system requirements when I need to.
It's a flip it.
Yeah.
Come on.
libc 2.15, man.
Actually, our buddy Civic had some contributions to this as well, didn't he?
I think it was Civic. It was
No, it was a different Renault, also called Renault, but yeah,
there are too many Renaults.
Programmer. Yeah, the actual programmer in the game.
I think Civic and this guy need to fight each other to the death so that we can determine who is the true Renault.
Yeah, no, Fez's are always cool, and the game really isn't all that bad. Fez is one of those platformers that it has something going for it, definitely. It's just a shame that it had a creator/designer who makes our egos look well-founded by comparison.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that, because you don't want to pick on certain people because reasons. But I knew everything I needed after watching like Indie Dev, the movie, and watching how he handled that.
Egos!
I wouldn't use the word ego. I would use, you might want to get medicated. But we wish him all the best, but I'm glad one of the developers got on that, got with Flibbity Ibbity Jibbity Wabbo, and he's like, hey man, I want to sort this, I want to get this fixed, let's unfuck it, and they did in glorious fashion. Haven't launched it yet, so it'll probably explode the box when I do. But I say good on it.
It needs more libbsd. It needs like 2 different versions of it.
And libsnd.io.
Yes. and of course libwin32, because that's a thing that's required. Coming up next, Pedro complains about his giant $1,000 video card, and we learn how to the fastest and most expensive way to get 3rd-degree burns on your balls.
Bouncy balls, man. Bouncy balls. Mind
Blue.
gutter.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the news. Well, it's not exactly the news just yet. First, we have some very special people we'd like to throw our appreciation at, like all over them.
They are truly special. There is a whole squad of special people that we just think are absolutely super. And those are the Patreons who go on over to patreon.com/LinuxGamecast to help support this train wreck as it hurtles on into a fiery oblivion. Of course, this is the micro pay site that you can, sign up for. Support the show. $1 gets you access to all the Patreon exclusive videos. There are 85 of them that you get to watch, including some lovely takes on the last season of Doctor Who that Moffat gets a chance to ruin, and some other videos as well. What else do we got? We have what are we at now in terms of donations? We're at 162, was it? Yeah, 162. We are still just a tiny bit away from forcing me to play Serious Sam 3, and even closer to making Pedro stream every Tuesday or Monday or some regular schedule.
Maybe that's what we do, man.
Monday and
we
Friday
just force Pedro to beat No Man's Sky.
Oh no!
Can you can you really beat No Man's Sky, or will that game beat you? But we have one person we like to thank in particular this week, Mr. Jason Derulo. So there you go. Thank you for supporting us. We love your support, and if you guys want to help us out, you can head on over to linuxgamecast.com, scroll all the way to the bottom of the page where we have a couple lovely Amazon affiliate links that you can click on. It's free money. You give us free money. It doesn't cost you anything. And Ven included at the bottom so that he would not forget to use the Amazon affiliate links, because he orders everything through Amazon. Literally everything. But let's hear Pedro complain about his $1,000 GPU. Go.
Well, it's actually gotten a bit cheaper in that there are some in stock. But yeah, no, this is the new NVIDIA beta driver. It's the 370.23. And it brings, the changelog is a bit small. But then again, we have confirmation that some changes that happen to some of the drivers on NVIDIA's side don't actually make it to the changelog that gets published. And Evidence of that is because that the changelog here just said that they give you the ability to over and underclock certain GeForce GPUs of the GTX 1000 series. That is the Pascal architecture, the 1060, 1070, 1080, whatever else they release. And they also fixed the bug that prevented Vulkan applications from presenting multiple queues to the same X11 swap chain, and the added pixel shift mode meta mode option, which enables support for 4K and 8K pixel shift displays. There'll be more details about that in the README. They also fixed a couple of bits with Prime, the ability to use multiple GPUs, say if you have an Optimus enabled laptop. They also fixed that. That's not really in the release notes. And on my end, anyway, they fixed a bug with Neverwinter Nights. Yes, that Linux game from 2003, it had a bug where cloaks would just appear as stretch textures all over the screen. Didn't look particularly nice, but yeah, I made a post about it on the
Man, I'm glad
DevTalk.
they did that. You were just about to throw that 1080 out the window.
No,
Well, it's
I did
between that
say-
and the coil wine. It's just completely unacceptable as a graphics card.
There's a lot of that, but that's a problem with the Gigabyte G1 Gaming specifically. Other cards don't have as much coil wine as this one does. But yeah, no, I actually made a post on the DevTalk NVIDIA forums about it, and I posted a screenshot of how it was supposed to look and how it actually looked in game. And I think it was Arthur Willett that asked me, could you get an API trace of that, make it as small as you can, and send it back to us? I did, and now this beta is out. And it works again. Awesome.
So now what I think everyone actually cares about is you're now able to overclock your 1080. So how much
Yes.
faster can you make a fast card?
Well, I didn't actually try to go stupid high. I went up to 100 megahertz offset on the GPU clock and 500 megahertz offset on the memory. Stupidly stable, no issues whatsoever. I got a whole 3 extra FERPs in Unigine Heaven 4 at full screen 1080p with the extreme settings, everything maxed out basically. And the Talos principle in Vulkan almost crossed the 200 average FERPs. It came out to 199.8 FPS average, so not too bad, but not too good either.
Now, one thing this driver does allow you to do now is if you have one of these fancy new laptops, you can give yourself 5th and 6th degree burns. I know they don't exist, but they will soon. So this is from Ars Technica. The links to all this stuff is in our show notes. Razer and a couple other laptop manufacturers have done it. They have done the unthinkable and have crammed desktop GTX 1080s and 1070s into gaming laptops. Now, what does this mean? Normally, you have the mobile optimized chipset, which is a hair weaker than the dedicated
I'm just
GPU.
gonna
It's
get
on
a PSA.
motherboard.
I mean,
That's
if you
less
ever
cool.
see anybody, in a coffee shop, and they actually have a lit up keyboard that looks like
Oh no!
Full RGB.
yeah, just keep walking.
No. You haven't seen the YOLO Swaggest Razer keyboard on the laptop, which actually each key is its own dedicated LED monitor that you can
Yeah, the
have,
Razer
custom
ones.
Yeah, you can
I
have
don't know,
custom
definitely,
icons.
the big takeaway from this, I mean, you're looking at the CUDA core counts. I mean, basically,
These are full GPUs. These are full desktop GPUs.
I mean, that's one thing you notice that they've dropped M from it. They're just like this 1080, 1070, 1060, right?
No, it's
Yeah.
the exact same GPU chips that they use on the desktop cards. It's just the rest of the the memory modules. Those are still the laptop specific ones, and that's where the big difference.
You're also not going to get the level of cooling that you would on a desktop
Oh, no.
GPU, which hence my 3rd degree burden comment earlier, because you cannot put this on your lap. You can barely take this on the go, because there are some pretty significant power efficiency gains with Pascal, but you're not going to be able to run a laptop off battery for more than 5-10 minutes maybe.
Oh
with
no!
one of those
It's
fuckers
the
running in
moment
your
you
system.
start a game, if you get enough battery life out of your laptop to watch the first cutscene, that's a pretty good laptop.
Well, you got to imagine that it's going to perform just a bit better because they did manage to cram a full powered 980 into a laptop. So
Yep. The 1060 is basically just a 980 with a hell of a lot better power efficiency.
Yeah.
yeah, you got to think about that though. I mean, you got something like a 1070 in a laptop. You're good. You can do well eventually. Hey, Valve, call me. But outside of that, get your shit together, pull a summer, and let's get some Linux going. So then we could have you effectively have a portable VR gaming rig.
I mean, you can sort of kind of not really pull it with well, I mean, I guess really the main issue there is you need a laptop with like 2 HDMI ports and a ton of USB ports. That would be a bit ungainly. But
one
yeah.
HDMI port and 2 USB 3.0.
You know what? You could put it in a backpack form factor, right? Like Master Blaster.
Someone actually did that?
Then one of your good friends are totally going to lead you right into that traffic. That's
Well, no, just go on a nice relaxing bike ride with it, right?
right. Oh man, we could actually make it happen, Jordan.
We could. But up next.
Okay, Feral Interactive. You might have know them. You might have heard of them, but they're our good friends. They like to port the Linux games, and they dropped this little tease that didn't get a lot of attention. 1 retweet. I think that was me, and 13 hearts. God, why did you change it to hearts, Twitter? But they say looks like Agent 47 has taken a trip to Hong Kong. Oh, it's actually an undercover Wei Shin and sleeping dogs. What does it mean?
I guess we can safely speculate about who's doing the Hitman port.
Virtual programming, right? Well, I mean, it's a Squeenix game, and I mean, so far Squeenix has been buddy with Feral, so it makes sense that Feral would be handling most of the ports of their slightly older games to the Linuxes, and not quite the Macs because Feral seems to be getting kind of out of that biz.
You can't really blame them because Macs haven't really had a refresh. Now, there's a claim that the Macintosh, the MacBook Pros or whatever, are going to get a refresh later, like in October or something like that. And, between Sleeping Dogs and Hitman, I'm probably going to have to call this because the one game I've always wanted to play, I don't know if I'll like it or not, is Hitman, so it's probably going to be Sleeping Dogs.
Yeah, probably. Or who knows? Like I said, it's probably going to be Arkham Knight. They're just completely fucking trolling us.
Yeah, man, they're going to get Batman
a Squeenix game, though.
It's going to be brilliant. But having fixed all problems with Trine 3.
Oh, yeah. Listen, the way you fix Trine 3 is to remove it from your computer. That's the only way to do it. But our good pals at Frozen Byte have come out with a new trailer for a game they like to call Nine Parchments, what they call a cooperative blast 'em up game of magic mayhem. And if you look through the trailer, yeah, this looks like a fucking Frozen Byte game. These look like assets completely ripped from Trine 3.
What does the Frozen Byte color palette?
Yes.
All the
green, teal, and like darker blue. Yeah. But what really interests me is this looks like a straight up ripoff of Magicka, which
it's Magicka, but it also has a little bit of Gauntlet from what I saw in it. And since Gauntlet is never coming to Linux, this may yet become a decent alternative. Question mark?
I don't know. Given Frozen Byte's track record with their games lately, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah. Well, Shodan was alright-ish. It was okay.
Shodan was okay. That's
and it
about
totally
as far
had
as
the
I'd
same
go
color
with it.
palette. They just put a dark and brown gray filter over
It was the
everything.
exact same color
right,
palette.
and for fuck's sake, they cannot draw human faces or model them. It was just, that is just nightmare fuel in that game. However, again, patch Trine, come on, guys, or unfuck it. Give us a
seriously, fix Trine 3, please.
Something. But I do wish them the best luck, because we're almost done with our Trine series, Trine Again. That's why we're kind of holding off on that. But this will allow us, a spiritual successor, if you will, and it will be 4 players, so we could definitely get some Patreons on.
Yes. So if you wouldn't mind being on the microphone, as it were, we could totally have you.
Spooky microphone.
It's the spookiest. But guys, it's a Humble Bundle with Linux games.
What? Lies. No, what actually happened? Humble Bundle, Indie 17, Lethal League, Beginner's Guide, Galaxy, Nuclear Throne, which is going to run you 10 wet sneaky caches. But pay what you want for the first 3 I just mentioned, and if you beat the average of 586, Lovers in Danger, Octodad, Super Time Force Ultra Yellow Swag, and the Humble Mystery Box of probably shit that you already own.
The stuff from the last bundle for people who didn't buy it. Yeah. But yeah, no, there's some definitely interesting games in this bundle. And you guys raised a good point on Wednesday with Weekly Daily Wednesday. You want the real sale stats. Look at a Humble Bundle sale. Look at the breakdown for money gained via Linux or Mac. That's who's gonna cause you some business.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You're looking at
Because the
like
Linux
712,
chunk is a
773.
teeny tiny bit smaller, but the Mac chunk has a considerably lower average.
But
So-
that we always call that the Pac-Man chart, which you kind of make up for in volume when Pac-Man itself
Yeah.
Paku.
is the Windows version. Couple of good games in here though. Couple of good games.
Yeah, you're interested in Lethal League?
Lethal League, definitely pick it up just for that. It's a multiplayer fun because that looks like definitely a party game. Plus, it has online multiplayer support.
Actually, speaking of like really fun party games, no online multiplayer, which is tragic. But Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time is a fantastic party game because you get shit faced and then you're forced to cooperate or die horribly.
No, actually, for me, even at the the $10 level, I paid $15 because I'm one of those idiots that likes to keep the the Linux average a bit higher. But yeah, even just at $10, Nuclear Throne, even though it has the frame rate locked at 30, totally worth it. It's worth
And
the
I mean, you get Octodad too. Octodad's actually a pretty fun
Yeah.
game. Our review withstanding because they went and fixed the controller support, and then it was
They
actually
did.
fun. So if you haven't checked that one out, I would highly recommend that. But
I think we got one more, right?
we got one more. Pedro's been going on and 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 on about No Man's Sky. What about some of the other alternatives? This is Planet Nomad.
Well, this one is an upcoming alternative, maybe, because it actually seems to have a bit more interaction with the game world itself than No Man's Sky does. And if you want to try it yourself, they actually have the builder. You can actually download it right now and just futz around with the models and do a little constructing all by your lonesome, as it were. But yeah, No Man's Sky is popular for all the wrong reasons. If anyone who's been into the games news lately has been, the only thing they've seen is basically, oh, No Man's Sky is really disappointing because there's no multiplayer, there's nothing to do in the world or the universe, as the case may be. Yeah, there's a lot of randomly generated planets, but they're basically all the same planet, copy pasted over and over and over. It's really annoying. So if the guys from Planet Nomads actually manage to sort that and make, give a bit more content to the game itself and let players do something, they won. They basically.
I'm calling this right
there's-
now. As soon as this will go into early access. It'll sit and stagnate for 2 years, and we'll never hear anything more from it. You can download the demo. Does not cost you a thing. It's absolutely priced to sell. As soon as you launch it, you go, fuck me, it's Unity. And yes, it runs like ass. And it's just a builder, which basically looks like Besiege in space. Jordan had a slightly different take on it.
Yeah, it's more like based on the trailer, at least, because I didn't fuck around with the demo all that much. It's like Besieged and Ark had a love baby, but just something on Pedro's point about like the worlds being kind of barren and samey in No Man's Sky. The scope of this game is very different because you're on a single planet as opposed to an entire galaxy of planets, where they do the Star Trek. This is the jungle planet. This is the ice planet. This is the fire planet, and blah blah blah. Everything's a monoculture. Blah. This is definitely more focused on the building, crafting, and survival elements as opposed to the exploration that No Man's Sky. But at least there's no fucked up T-Rex with like feet for arms.
Look, if there's actually any exploration worth a damn in Planet Nomads, it's already fucking won.
And on that bombshell, let's kick on over to the Chairquisition. We're throwing chairs at Death Road to Canada, and I'm trying desperately to remember Static X lyrics so I can have a decent opening. What's wrong? Can't you sing dong ding dong? Push it all the phonies? Hook it up in the rain away? Get up on this Toronto death trip. This is the Chairquisition for Death Road to Canada. That's my lovely little Static X reference that I completely butchered. So, what is it? It's by Rocket Cat Games. It's written in a custom engine using OpenGL and SDL, which is the right way to do things. You can pick it up for around 15 of your local space currency. And what does it? Control a car full of jerks as they explore cities, recruit weird people, rescue dogs, argue with each other, and face gigantic swarms of slow zombies. Randomly generated for a new story with rare events every time you play. Ooh. Full disclosure, these guys did send us some keys. Good on them for that. So let's kick off the chair acquisition. 1 chair means that it's garbage. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. 4 chairs means that it's awesome. We also have our categories of doom, which we apply these chair rankings to, mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So, did the car start when you tried to launch the Toronto Death Trip? Ben, did it make
Vroom,
it working?
vroom, bitches. Earlier, I think it was on Friday when everything just went to absolute shit when this came. I got to scream 1404 LTS Master Race, bitches, because everything else outside of that had fallen apart, but the developer decided to upgrade to 1604, then everything fell apart again, including for me. It is back up and running, however, on the Ubuntu 1404 LTS box of business with a 980 displayed at UHD. Really no major issues with it other than it didn't run twice for different reasons. Bad dev. Oh, and local multiplayer, it's busted. I mean, how busted? Well, if you have somebody over and you're actually trying to play it, every now and then, usually on a whim, the AI will take over the second player. Put that one together.
So it's the buddy that your friend controls, right?
And here's the thing. It's a release game. This game came out in July. This is not a new release. And the bug with the multiplayer, local multiplayer, the AI multiplayer, that's busted. Known issue, Brad. Totally known issue. However, with a bit of ingenuity and by the grace of the chairs themselves, you can manage to get it up and working. And I think currently, right now, everything works if you purchase the game, download it, and play it. But as we've seen in the past 3 days, that could change mañana. But I will give it the 2 chairs.
Yeah, so on Fedora 24, 64-bit, on the i7 6700K and HQ, because I tested this on both the laptop and the desktop with the 960M and the 980 respectively, it runs fine, but it does take some doing to get up and running. It was working fine on Friday as long as you had tslib installed, or rather Thursday, but as of Friday, it was missing libsndio.so.6, which does not exist in the Fedora repositories. So I had to go and track down the package that it comes from in Ubuntu, pull out the library, stick it in the games directory. Lo and behold, I was still missing libbsd, so I installed that, and then I was off to the races. Now, if they fix this, good on them for that, but I don't feel like going back and testing this, considering I had to take 2 separate exercises to get this game up and running. You get 2 chairs, man. Classy.
Yeah, no.
Classy stuff.
On Thursday on Ubuntu 16.04 and both SteamOS, it would require libts-o.o.so.o.
I sent you a care package.
Yeah, Vin actually uploaded that particular library from Ubuntu 14.04, and I just dropped it in the games folder. Oh, hey, it's working. And then Jordan started complaining, oh, they kind of futzed the dependencies again, and now it doesn't work on Fedora. Okay, that's weird, but yeah, then a Vent actually pointed out there was already a thread in the Steam forums, and the dev in that thread was actually saying, oh, yeah, I updated to SDL2, 2.0.4, and apparently they forgot to cull some of the extraneous dependencies, and, you know, the touchscreen lib caused it not to work on 16.04 and on SteamOS 2. I guess they fixed it now? I haven't really gone back and tested. At least on 16.04, it works out of the box, so everything considered on the both the Amiga with the FX8370E and the GTX 1080, and on the Steam box with the Athlon X4 860K and the GTX 970, it works now, so 2 chairs.
All right, that's 2 chairs for Mixed with the Working. We haven't had like a full-on 2-chair Mixed with the Working game in a while. Way to go, Toronto Death Trip, Rocket Cat games. So Shiny and Sounds, Ven, how did the Hipster Pixels do for you?
It's Hipster Pixel, my favorite thing in the entire world. It's amazing and it's crazed. Well, okay, it's Hipster Pixel, but it is what I like to call 16-bit attempt at Hipster Pixel, and, you know, for the most part, it's done right. Decent color palette, bunch of fake parallax scrolling, Nothing really to complain about. The character creation is kind of spot on when you just start making, because I didn't realize that you could customize to that far until Pedro and Jordan were going on about, Richard Stallman. I was like, wait a minute, oh yes, there is. Then so I made the entire LGC crew. Maybe we'll play some of that later this evening. However, by default, you're running around and you are just a giant pixel-y blob that kind of looks and moves with a bouncy effect of what I like to call like E.T. on the Atari 2600 overclocked. And your feet make that wonderful sound, which I swear is, if not a direct copy, an homage to the sound that Link made in Zelda 2, the best Link game ever made. But back to that film and grain effect, that is just one of the effects constantly overlaid. One thing you have to do is when you come into an area, there's little sparkly star diamond things that let you know you need to go and inspect, and that's where you'll find your petrol, your food, flashlights, just anything like that. And if you have that film grain, because sometimes it randomly flickers, you'll find yourself walking over to something. Oh, look, and the zombies will nope you. So definitely cut that off. Soundtrack. Didn't know it had one. Apparently, maybe it does, because I had the volume cranked way too loud. Then I hit start, and it went beep to like move like that, and just blew my ear sockets through my head hole. And that's really all I can say about it. The text, it scrolls by, then your stuff like that. Run for your fare for your hipster pixel bit. It's not horrible. Graphics are all right. It does this was kind of fascinating. It does a windowed mode, 1080p windowed, or you can do a hard mode giggity, which will put a 28-inch 4K displayed monitor in 640 by 480, which is adorable to look at on the NVIDIA.
More like horrifying.
Panel, or it's just like beep. Oh, it's like, oh, it's so cute. And I used to consider that a bitching monitor, but I'm going to give it 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's just meh. I mean, to be fair, they did Hipster Pixel right, because the game is like 15 megs in size. It's not like Super Time Force Ultra, which is a half a gig file or a half a gig download for a Hipster Pixel game. But I mean, it's just meh. I mean, so Hyper Light Drifter has completely spoiled me for Hipster Pixel games, because now that's set the bar. That's what I consider a 4-chair Hipster Pixel. And if you don't even come close, you're going to get 2 chairs for this. And yeah, Ven's right. The film grain totally looks like the focusy sparkle things. And I too was perplexed to learn that there was in fact sound in this game, because I didn't hear any and everything was cranked up. So I mean, that's really it. It's very underwhelming. It gets the job done, so it gets the middling score, 2 chairs.
Yeah, no, it's not exactly Hipster Pixel. It's like Jordan already mentioned, it's a 50 megabyte download. So yeah, no, and the pixel art isn't terrible. What really irked me, like both Ven and Jordan already mentioned, were the camera filters they had going on. You had the film grain, you had the scratches, you had the glitches, you had just completely stupid, superfluous stuff that has no business being in there. Thankfully, they give you an option to disable those, which I did immediately. Now, after the first run, which took me about 20 minutes till all my guys were munched, I had to mute the sounds and just listen to something else in the background. I get that the game is trying to be purposefully campy. That's painfully obvious when you look at some of the dialogue, quote unquote. But that doesn't excuse how annoying the MIDI grunts and thwacks get after just a few minutes. So for me, it gets 2 chairs.
All right, that's 2 chairs for Shiny and Sounds. Up next is Control. Then the Control. Did it drive well?
Yeah. I mean, it actually did all right, Brad. It's not horrible. Now, admittedly, I did not try this with a keyboard and gerbil. I don't even know if the gerbil would be a use. It'd probably just be keyboard and mash, because it's something you look at it and you're like, oh, this is going to be like a twin stick type thing. You'd be wrong. It's basically, you're down, up, left, right. Fair. That's how you aim, and you do that. They kind of did guns right with the aiming. I didn't have a problem with the aiming. Some people actually did. But there is a problem with the down, up, left, right. It's SDL2. Everything should work. Everything doesn't, but it's not busted. But I did find myself having to tap the directional arrow, even in things like the menu. This is when you know you're going to have a little bit of irritation, like left, because you have an inventory screen, statuses and all that. And you're sitting back, with the 2-meter long extension on your X-Clone controller, like chilling out, looking at the big screen. You're like, click, damn it, left, then it goes. And I was like, ooh, that might be a problem later when I'm in a sort of zombies. But fortunately, everything in this game is really slow. So it's more of an annoyance. I can't really ding at a chair with that, but that is something that probably should be addressed. But don't flip out, and it's something you should look out for. I'm going to give it a solid 4.
I mean, everything worked relatively fine with the Steam controller. You can't tell a crowd against the dark background, but I'm holding it up. But yeah, the one thing that kind of irked me was, number one, all the button prompts they tell you in the tutorial are mapped to the keyboard, regardless of if you have a controller plugged in. So there's that brief moment of figuring out which buttons do what. The other thing is that aiming is really weird, because I'll find I'm walking in this direction and I want to shoot something, but my character didn't flip over to the other side where that enemy is, and so I end up wasting bullets because I hit left and I expect my character to face left. But beyond that, no real issues. The aiming's a bit hit and miss, but it gets 3 chairs nonetheless.
Yeah, everything I threw at it worked. Like Ben already said, there was more than just a couple of times where it didn't register a couple of inputs, but that seemed to be mostly in the menus for me. So I don't know what the hell was up with that. But yeah, it's kind of to be expected that everything, whatever manner of joystick or gamepad you happen to have around, it's just going to work because they're using SDL2 and they're doing it right. Both the Logitech F310 and the Mistress over here, both of these worked just fine. I guess if you really wanted to, you could play it with a mouse and keyboard, but I have no idea. 4 chairs.
All right, that gets 3 for Control. And finally, the fun segment. Ben, did you have fun on our little road trip?
Hey, man, check this out. In this game, you can actually throw chairs. 5 chairs. Next.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about what this game is. And it took me a minute to realize this. Much like, what was it, Darkest Dungeons? Or
Yeah, Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game of random luck. And not a big fan of that. But maybe we can get into it. So let's think about this. With your basic play, it is brief. You're in a car, or you're in a van, or you're in that thing from
You're on a horse.
Dumb and Dumber 2, or a free candy van. And you're riding, and you're going to get skullfucked there. But then you have where you get to test your skill, which you don't need a whole lot of, is when you go scavenging and you find stuff, and it's well done. It is enjoyable because you can throw your chairs, you can build barricades, and you can herd the zombies, and you can remember to shut doors. Once I realized that you could shut doors, this game got a lot fucking easier. I was like, oh, that was kind of dumb of me. But there are some things you can't do. One, medkits. You can't use medkits when you are scavenging. That you need to have somebody with a health ability to use the medkits in the motoring vehicle in order to heal back up. Kind of irritating that you can't use the medkits, especially when you're in siege mode. You'll find out about that when the game decides it wants to skull fuck you, and it will, because, a couple of times you'll have a good run, good 10, 15-minute long run. Sometimes 3 minutes, the game will instantly nope you right out of the gate. So I was like, well, why are you even bothering with the save function, Brad? I mean, no one's going to sit here and it's like save spam. There's no point. Then we talk about the AI. Since we've already discussed that online multiplayer, not a thing. They need to fix that. That would be a thing. Or a 4-way local would be good. But even 2, you can't really do that. So you're stuck with the AI. And the AI are fucking kleptomaniacs. You can't let them near any items that drop the items that you're going to need for weapons, basically, is what I'm talking about. Because you want to get all the fun stuff that's yoink, yoink, yoink. And I was like, damn it. So I didn't end up with anything good. And let's talk about this. While you're driving and you think things are going remotely good, get ready for a siege or 7. And if you're having a bad one, expect 8, because that's what it does. But let's talk about what is really fun, at least for me. What made this game is like, shit, I'm absolutely going to continue playing this. And that is that customization I was talking about. When I sit down and realize that, oh, right, let's make, this is something Jordan, I think, can expand on. better in his bit because that's something he does to make him care about the character. So I made the LGC crew be myself, Strider. I even put Orn in there because we need somebody to trade, if something went horribly wrong. But the random button frighteningly well on generating members of the LGC team with just a slight hair change or two. But yeah, that actually made it fun watching that. And Empty's representation is horrifying. Maybe we'll look at that after the show. It's kind of fun. But what is it? If we got to put a bow on it for this fun section, it's Oregon Death Trail, hack and slash, hipster pixel, 16-bit wannabe game that's kind of ruined by the RNG events, man. At least in Darkest Dungeon, it gave you the illusion that you might stand the slightest fucking chance at some point. This game, I don't know. And I know there's a ton of game modes. I'm still on that first game mode. And I was like, people like, I made it almost to the end of the Death Road to Canada. And then I got noped. And I was like, okay, good. I don't know how you did that. But yeah, the RNG just really kind of kills it for me. I mean, I've never died outside of like siege events in the game from anything other than the game spinning the wheel of Booga Booga and going, you know what? You're dead. And I'm like, come on. I was like, nope, still dead. So I might actually get back into this if they ever get the 4-player co-op. That's something they plan on working on. Or, maybe if they get started on some of that netcode, Brad, we'll come back and we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to give this 2 chairs. It's not busted. It's not broken. But at $14.99, that's a tough sell.
Yeah, so speaking of throwing chairs, periodically while you're driving in the car, you'll get conversations about it. And when Richard Stallman starts saying, I can't believe we can start throwing chairs, it makes everything better, I just had a smile on my face. The first time it cropped up, I couldn't grab a screenshot in time. I'll post it I managed to grab it the second time around. I'll post it in the show notes. But at one point, my squad consisted of Richard Stallman, Sailor Moon, and a luchador named El Satan. Only Sailor Moon actually survived, and then her car blew up, killing her. Yeah, so you just randomly die in this, which is kind of horseshit. I was originally going to give this game 3 chairs because I enjoyed it from the outset, but as time goes on, the game really starts to drag because you get the same sort of carpool conversations again and again and again, and then RNG just comes and rips your legs off and beats you to death with it. Though you can get a lot of fun out of like the special character run through is fun because you get some weird shit like Sailor Moon and Mexican wrestlers, and at one point McGruff the crime dog, just a dog in a trench coat, and also a dog who can drive a car. But I mean it wears thin after a while. You'll generally die after about 20-30 minutes because the game just throws a bunch of horseshit at you, like, oh yeah, here's an event that takes all your ammo away, here's a siege, have fun with that, and then you just die because you have no weapons. To counter events point about the inventory, you can actually swap out inventory, so if your AI guys pick up stuff, you can just give it to you.
Yeah, what I'm talking about when you were in-game fighting and you needed a weapon.
Oh no, you can totally do that.
Oh, you can pause it?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Didn't know.
And so, yeah, like I was saying, for a pick up and play title, it's all right because you're going to not spend more than half an hour. But that's all this will ever be. A slightly less than horrible way to kill 30 minutes. It gets 2 cheers.
Yeah, this is a newish take on the old Oregon Trail with a few improvements, especially for those moments when you're not just reading about characters spouting memes and internet culture references while you're driving to Canada. Getting out of the car and exploring the stores / houses of the cities you come across is now considerably more enjoyable than those similar sections in Oregon Trail. But just like Oregon Trail, this is a genre that doesn't particularly appeal to me. Granted, you can still get some enjoyment out of making the custom characters for your friends / internet buddies like you would with your XComs. It's the whole war story spiel all over again. In my game, for instance, I was in a party consisting of me, Scott Michaud, and Ven. And in game, we had made camp for the night, and a moose showed up. Now, when you get like one of those random events, you get like 4 choices where your characters decide on what to do. Now, one of the choices on my end was Ven wrestles with moose. Of course, I picked that, and Ven lost and he died because the moose bit his head off. It's also the game in itself is also a great way to burn like 20 minutes up to an hour when you just want to play a run and then do something else when your characters get munched. Now, the inability to save a run whenever you want, while fitting with the theme of Oregon/Oregon Trail type game, it just makes it so I get bored and I just decide to get all my characters killed so I can start a new run whenever I decide to pick up on the game again. But yeah, that kind of kills it for me. So 2 chairs.
All right, so that's 2 chairs for fun, and if we tally all of that, or Death Road to Canada becomes a 2-chair game, which is appropriate considering that Ven is not even allowed in Canada. So, final thoughts?
Well, it's definitely an improvement on the Oregon Trail genre, but not a significant one at that. It's also very, very hard to justify 15 wet sticky caches when in 2 hours of game, none of my characters came down with dysentery.
It's not right. I think it's a bit of a high ask. I mean, and I hate saying that because, I mean, it's a very well done game. I mean, this is not shovelware by any means. A lot of time, work, and continuous work because the developer is like, I hate bugs. And it's like, well, you know, when you upgrade to 1604, maybe you want to keep around to 1204 and, you know, 1404 or something like what it says on the requirements page and double check that, Brad. Don't hate it. I would love some multiplayer. I mean, this is a party game. You can have hours with something like this if you can get some 4-way going. Giggity. I just wish people would quit jumping in cars during zombie apocalypses. Find a fucking motorcycle or a pedal bike. You know, they don't make as much noise and they don't use as much petrol. You're going to get further. Use your brain organ for once.
Yeah, one of the this game has a great sense of humor because I hijacked both the dog van from Dumb and Dumber and Dale from King of the Hill's extermination van. And there's like a Wienermobile and all sorts of shit. Like these guys said, this game is fairly well put together, but for $15, considering you're really going to play it for maybe half an hour at a time, the odd time you have half an hour to kill, that's a bit much. Well, it's really when you boil it down, it's kind of an okay game, and that's really it.
Making your character list like enemies, the people you don't like, maybe that could give you some replay value.
Maybe if you just like watching people get mad at each other, but then you could just watch our Portal playthroughs and get the exact same results. Coming up next, we got some hate mail where we discuss if we were going to replace each of us, who would we pick? My vote's on what's his name, Chris Evans.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, my favorite, and it's just that one time of the show that we can actually interact with you guys, unless you're not in chat realm dynamic as it is. But if you'd like to get in touch with us so we can have that teeny tiny bit of interaction, you can go on over to linuxgamecast.com, hit that contact button on the nav bar, fill out the form. It's easy enough. Just remember, if you're trying to promote your game, send us 3 keys or a playable build that we can share among us, because if you don't, we'll just make fun of you. If you see the show posted on YouTube, you can leave us a comment there. On Patreon, you can also leave us a comment there. Facebook, just track down the original post. Same with Twitter or Google+. And chances are, if it's something really interesting, unless we really have nothing going on that week, we will feature your stuff on this very segment. So let's get right into it. So Francisco, he said, am I the only bastard who skips the game reviews except for this one to comment? This was on the Starbound review, and watch the other LGC shows. The other regular content is way more interesting to listen to. Smiley face.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, we're not really the audience of our podcast. We just kind of make it, and I don't think YouTube provides
I do listen to it, but
that level of in-depth like statistics as to these people stopped in around here and resumed here, and so on and so forth. But I mean, that's why the show's an hour long, because you can skip to the parts that you like.
I don't know, man. I mean, it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't work when. But I didn't watch this one, I promise.
Admittedly, I listen to all our shows. Usually when Ben posts them on Sunday nights before I go to sleep, I listen to it. Or Monday mornings.
So he falls asleep to the dulcet tones of his own voice, ladies and gentlemen. That's I'm just going to leave that one there. You guys can have it.
I am a bit of a narcissist.
Okay, at least you didn't say the other thing. Let's talk about replays. There was some talk. I don't even. I forget exactly what the running joke was.
A couple episodes ago,
right?
But Chad.
It was a hate mail. Yeah.
Chad was like, "Stab Pedro in the taint," and
and I mean, well, you did, and then someone sent us an email. So
he writes it. He says, "You know what? In all fairness, who are you going to replace Pedro with if you actually did Das Boot him? Question mark. The show just doesn't seem like it would be the same without a Portuguese crumpet alien to yell as he contemplates world domination."
Chris Evans.
The number 3. I don't.
No, there was actually the suggestion that LGC should have a third rotating cast member, and I said that if there were enough people who didn't like me, as it were, that it would I would find myself justified in taking a couple of weeks off every now and again to let Strider empty the atomic ass Sandy, if he's up for it, to take my place.
So what he's actually saying is he's in desperate need of a vacation, you guys. He just can't stand us anymore.
Speaking of, next week, Chad will actually get a bit of his wish because I'm going south to see my parents.
And we've replaced him with the number 3.
Yes.
3 is 2 plus 1.
Purple.
But, we got one more. This is from Tyler, one of our Patreons, and he says, "But you know who aren't heartless sons of bitches? The fine. Don't assume my heartless son of a bitch status, you shitlord." I guess Tyler is a bit triggered, and he's gonna hate on us a little bit, and that's fine. You can be a heartless bastard and still be a Patreon, because we're just gonna go and cry into piles and piles of your money.
I mean,
yes. Those teeny tiny
$14
dimes you throw at our heads.
Which is awesome, by the way, and we do thank you for it. But I do think on that bombshell we should cue the music, because you can always find us around 9:30 Eastern. Type that into the Googs, type it into Bing, it'll probably just explode, because you might type Linux something after that, and who knows what'll happen. If you want to scream at me, I'm at Vince Stone on the Twitters. I'll try to scream back in your direction, unless it's just like, some random comment. I might give you a heart thing. On the G+, plus Vince Stone, much more active there.
You can find me being heartless and butchering heart lyrics at The Burning Fool on Twitter, plus Jordan Svung on Google+, because I am Jordan Svung on the Google+.
And if you do type Linux into Bing, you'll probably get a result of like Sonic Linux, which is kind of apt for me because there are a couple of people out there who just wish I'd die with dignity and just leave them alone. But I am Pedro Mateos. You can always find me at @unaccounted_for on Twitter or plus Pedro Mateos on Google+.
So, Lance, did we learn anything this week?
I learned that I prefer Sonichu Linux over Sonic Linux.
How about Tails?
I see what you did there. That's so clever. Oh my god.
Hi, NSA.
Tail F, baby.
Five dudes.